What up, YouTube? This is Steven, and welcome back. In this video, I want to sort of talk about a particular form of anti-blackness that once upon a time I did have, particularly when I wasn't woke, right? And that was, feeling like blackness and the black identity wasn't enough, right? Me simply being black wasn't enough. I felt, sometimes I kind of got to feeling like, oh, perhaps if I was like mixed, I would perhaps be worth more, considered more desirable, and desirability as far as like, being in like an employee or something. Um, and also perhaps even like fitting in to whiteness. At one point, I think I did, to be honest, I think I did. Thankfully, not now. You know, I see, that group of people for who they truly are now. But once upon a time, right, I didn't, right? And I feel like society sort of sends you this message that blackness is not good anyway, so that, compounds on that idea of wanting to kind of be viewed as something other than black. Um, you know, um, but the way that I look, like people often assumed that I was mixed, right? um, and thankfully, I was never far gone to the point where I was pretending to be something that I wasn't, right? As far as me representing myself and claiming a race, I did say that I was black and I consider myself black. I identify as black. Those were my responses usually. If people probe more into the why I look the way I look, then perhaps I would give them some information about my background, right? But yeah, once upon a time, I just thought like, perhaps if I, did actually have a white parent and not a white passing parent, perhaps things would be a little different for me. And to be honest, yes, it would be a bit different for me in a negative way, right? Thankfully, both of my parents are, part of the black community. But it's just something that kind of popped into my mind and that I wanted to sort of put out there, right? Because a lot of times I think that sometimes, well, we are often sent the message that blackness isn't good enough. And sometimes people even try to, run away from the blackness in one way or another, right? Like, sometimes when it comes to the people we, marry and have our children with and make families with, sometimes people like to run away from the blackness when it comes to that. Sometimes people like to run away from the blackness when it comes to identity. Like, oh, I'm black, but I'm also, um, Italian, Scottish, Native American, and all these other things, right? um, and I'm just really appreciative and thankful, to be black, honestly, you know. Um, would I trade my 59 or 57% blackness? Of course not. That's something that, thankfully, that's my birthright, That was, my gift, my birthright. And despite all the BS that comes with that birthright, thankfully I'm in a situation now, in a mindset now where I'm like, I'm not giving that up. I'm not changing it. I'm not disguising it as something that it's not, you know, uh, you know. And thankfully, again, I never was the one to try and portray myself as something that I wasn't. I wasn't trying to, pass as, passing as mixed, right? And also, I think it helped that I was went to a majority black school and lived in a majority black neighborhood, so it wasn't, feeling the need to sort of like fit into a group that I wasn't a part of, right? Where it was like being black was, being a part of the group, right? But I want to keep it real. Since I'm here, I really want to keep it real, keep it 100. There was a brief moment where I stopped checking the black box, right? To keep it real, I did. I kind of tried it. I didn't announce it to anyone. I didn't make a big scene about it. I just kept it to myself, right? When I stopped checking the black box when it comes to like these applications and stuff like that, right? There was a moment where I did that. At this point now, of course, I checked the black box, right? But at one point, I kind of checked like mixed or other, just to see how it went, right? But I felt like in those experiences, my my experience are like, I guess, yeah, my experience seemed to sort of circle back to blackness, right? It kind of, honestly, it was kind of like subtle reminders that, oh, you're black. I remember being on the telephone, filling out us, trying to participate in this, market research study, and it got to the point about race, and it was like, oh, what race are you? That person asked on the telephone, and I was like, oh, I'm mixed, and the person asked what I was mixed with, and I had told them, black and white, right? And I felt like ultimately, I felt like I would just be placed in a black category, and I felt like that was sort of like the thing. It kind of kept circling back to blackness. And of course, this is when I was asleep, right? This is, again, I'm sure we all have stories and moments that we could talk about when we were asleep. I'm just being real and honest and upfront about mine, right? um, and I'm not sure what brought me back to claiming blackness, because I don't think it was really like, a N-word moment, right? A Negro moment. Because I am, it's something that I kind of kept to myself, but I just kind of felt like it seemed like my experiences just kept circling back to blackness. It just kept going back to blackness, right? It wasn't going to mixedness, and it certainly wasn't going to whiteness, you know. It was going to blackness. In the society we live in, that's what carries the most weight as far as like in racial identity is concerned, right? And we've seen this played out through history. There's some people, I've got these people in my family who claim nothing but blackness, and they don't really look much black at all, honestly. My dad included, right? And again, this is something that I kept to myself. I didn't really talk about it with other people, so I wasn't getting people's opinions about it. Wasn't something that I spoke about with my siblings or my brother. Well, I guess that would be a sibling. you know, this wasn't something that I spoke about with my siblings or like my parents or my family, other family members, etc. It's just something that I tried on my own, and I tried it, and it wasn't for me, right? I don't think mixedness is for me. I kind of actually like the black identity. Well, not kinda, but I like and love the black identity because definitely more so than the mixed and other identity. Because what is mixed and what is other? It's so ambiguous, and it's like it doesn't really denote anything. Honestly, it doesn't really signify anything in particular, while blackness does. Well, and to be fair, and to be honest, do I think the black identity is 100% congruent with me? No, I don't. But I feel like it's the best option for me. And honestly, knowing what I know now, and being at the point where I am now in my blackness and being woke, if I were able to assume a white identity, I honestly don't think I would. Because it's like, you know, I see this group of people for who they really are. And it's like, why do I want to associate with this group of people? You know, only reason I would see was, to be like a spy, for black people. Which I think white passing people could be great spies for black people if they wanted to. Um, you know, you know. And also to speak on the experience of doing my DNA test. I did two different DNA tests, and they both came up with like the majority of my DNA being, African DNA, and I think that is like really beautiful. Honestly, it's like I was kind of hesitant to do that because I felt like it would show up maybe a little bit more white DNA than I thought than I would like for it to show up. Because of course, I knew, looking at me, I knew that my DNA test was not going to show up 100% black, or even 75% black. Um, but I'm like, wow, I tend to concentrate on that chunk, not chunk, but I tend to concentrate on that, African DNA segment, right? And honestly, the only thing that I concentrate on the white part is like the European Jewish DNA, which is kind of like, what the F? Like, where did that come from? That's the thing. Like, as far as like the white DNA, that's the only thing that really kind of captures my attention. I'm like, okay, British, okay, Irish, all right, oh, a little bit of Iberian Peninsula, all right, Italian, a little bit of Italian, okay, you know, European Jewish. Oh, where did that come from? But as far as like Africa, I'm interested in like the whole segment, because I guess maybe I just feel like that is my experience, and as well, I think that's kind of like my look. I kind of think I do have, a West African look, if you really know what to look for. You know, I think the skin tone would probably just throw people off. But as far as like the head shape, I think my head shape is actually kind of like reminiscent of like West African people. You know. But yeah, I wonder where we get the idea that blackness isn't good enough. That blackness is something that we should have to apologize for. Blackness is something that we should run away from. Where do we get those ideas from? Hmm. You know? So, for me, we'll be checking the black box from, I've been checking the black box, honestly, for a while. But, I will be checking the black box from now until, the day that I'm called home, right? That's how, some folks say, yeah, I'm called home. Because honestly, I think it's like the best option. Really, it's like, especially for me, like especially with my upbringing and the situation, upbringing in the community, as far as living, attending all majority black schools, my family, and all that. For me, it's the best option. And a couple of times people have sort of not challenged, but sort of talked about like, I think you should maybe. I kind of see you more so as Latino than black. That has come up a couple of times. Um, and I think it's a difference between, I guess, your look and what you consider yourself, right? I mean, someone saw a picture of my dad, um, shout out to, you know, Michael Johnson, YouTube user Michael Johnson, aka Mike Johnson, and aka Mike. But yeah, he had said like, oh, your dad looks like he looked like Eastern European. I think that's what he said. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you could kind of say something like that. That's true, but um, it is, I guess, it's sort of like a difference between what you look like and what you claim as your racial identity. Some people have mistaken me for Middle Eastern, right? I was walking through the park like a week ago on Sunday, and this guy and I believe his son were walking in the park. I think it was Father's Day. Um, so yeah, they was walking through the park, and then he had said something to me about, oh, like basically like, where are you from, or like, what are you? Again, probing into race. And I haven't met this man a day in my life. I don't know this guy. Just asked me just upfront about it, right? Um, and I had spoken on it. I'm like, well, you know, and he asked me, was I Muslim? So I'm guessing it sounds like, am I Middle Eastern? Because sometimes people say Muslim and Middle Eastern are like the same thing. um, but I do bring up that example just to say that despite how you, despite how I'm viewed, I am aware, and I claim a black identity despite how I may be viewed by certain people. Some people may think, oh, this guy is like Middle Eastern or a Muslim, right? Some people may say, oh, that guy's a Latino. Some people may say, oh, that guy is mixed, right? A lot of different options, especially if I happen to be in a group where that is like, oh, if I was in a group with Latinos, I would be Latino. If I was a group with black people, I would be the light skinned dude. If I was in a group with white people, I would be the mixed dude. If I was in a group with Middle Eastern folks, I would be the Middle Eastern person, you know, etc. Right? um, and I spoke on that a little bit in that video about the video I did about what I like and dislike about being light skinned. um, you know, but ultimately, what I want to end this message or this video with is the message that I think blackness is truly beautiful. All right, I know that's sort of like what you're supposed to say, but I do mean it. I think that blackness is beautiful, and I think that I was very lucky and very fortunate to be born with like a direct link to Africa, you know, and to have um, African features, and to just be associated with Africanness and blackness. I think that I really view that as a blessing, and thankfully I do, because not everybody views that as a blessing, right? And there's a lot of reasons why that is, but I'm thankful and appreciative to be at a point where I can view blackness as something very positive instead of viewing it as something negative, viewing it as something that um, you should like distance yourself from, or something you should apologize for, or something that is, negative. Thankfully, no. I view it as something positive, something to go toward, honestly, go towards the blackness. Make sure your kids are blacker than you are. you know, don't apologize for blackness. No one else has to apologize for being who they are. So why should we? Especially if we're like, the original people of this planet, right? How you gonna make the original people apologize? Come on. Come on. How you gonna do that? Come on. Without black people, there would be no other people on this planet. All groups of people originated from the black people, all right? All groups ultimately originated from black people, all right? So it is sort of strange that we go through what we go through in society, you know? But I don't know why that is, other than just, anti-blackness and people wanting to make money off of anti-blackness and wanting to support white supremacy and all that good stuff. But, that's another video for another day. But again, my closing message is, I'm very thankful to be able to claim a Black identity. You know, I'm very thankful to be able to see the beauty in the Black identity, the beauty in Blackness, the strength in Blackness, the regalness in Blackness, right? I'm thankful to be accepted by a Black/African community, you know, and for me, the Black identity is my identity, full stop, 100% at this point. You know. So there you have it. So thanks for watching, you guys. Adios and goodbye for now.